there BookTube, it's Eleanor here, and today I'm doing my what I read and what I'm going to read next week video. And I had a really good reading week this week. I read, I think, 6 novels and 1 graphic memoir, so that's really exceptional for me in terms of reading, and it's mainly because of the first 4 books I read. They were addictive and I was getting through them at least 1 a day. Partly in because I had a little bit more time this week for reading, but also I just couldn't put them down. The first book in the series is called Talented and it's by Sophie Davis. This book is set in a world where 100 years ago a nuclear reaction had meant that children were being born with unusual powers, which they were calling talents. Our main character, Talia, or Natalia, is in a camp where they're training hunters, and she is one of these talented or talents. The hunters are like spies, and there's different departments within the talented recruitment. So when talents are discovered at 5, they all get tested, and if they have a talent they get sent to a special school where they do schooling but also learn how to develop their talents. And then at sort of school leaving age, 16, 17, they are then put into different types of job to train for, and the hunters is sort of the elite, and they are sort of spies and ones with really good talents. So this story is a bit of a paranormal romance type story. I believe it's YA, but I'm not 100% sure. And it's all about Natalia's quest for revenge. There's been some things that happened in her past that we find out about, and she's joined these hunters in the hope to get revenge. At the start of the first few chapters there's quite a lot of info dumping, but it didn't feel too clunky. It was done in quite a nice way, and actually it helped you to sort of understand what was going on because you were sort of thrown a little bit into the story. So it was quite good to have that information put in there, even if it was sort of like, oh, and here's some information, because I found that really helped. I really enjoyed the romance in this story. There was no insta-love, and it was all quite natural. There is a little bit of a love triangle, which I know some people don't like, but actually as you read through the series this becomes less of an issue, and it works for this story. It didn't feel like, oh, there's 2 people to choose from. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's definitely not your average triangle of love. If I was to say what type of people might like this, I think if you liked Alias, or you liked Buffy, or you like Rachel Kane's books, or Patricia Briggs' books, I'd say that this is sort of in a similar vein to that. I literally just couldn't put these down. All 4 books that I've read so far were 5 stars from me, which, you know, is a testament. They may not be the most literary best, you know, written books ever, but they had me on the edge of my seat. I loved them. At times I was going, oh my god, and they were just brilliant. I really thoroughly enjoyed them. And so because I enjoyed the first one so much, I read all 4 books that are currently out in straight after each other, which is generally, normally I don't do that. If I'm finding a book series sort of a bit slower, I tend to take a bit of a break, but I just couldn't wait to find out what was happening in these, so I literally read them back to back to back. So the first is Talented, the second book is Caged, the third is Hunted, and the 4th is Created. And apparently a 5th book is out in 2015, so I can't wait for that. This book has been a bit of an indulgent pleasure for me, and has actually reminded me how much I really like paranormal romance. It was a genre that I really read a lot of before starting BookTube, and sort of maybe a few years before BookTube, and actually it's an area that I really love. I really enjoy the books. They're just escapist books. They're really good, so I'm definitely going to get a bit more back into my adult paranormal romance stories, I think. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on this, but I think Sophie Davis, the author of this series, may be self-published, and seriously, if she is, she deserves somebody to publish these books for her and get her more attention. She is brilliant. I love the stories, and I can't wait for the next one. So Sophie, you're probably not watching, but if you are, let me know when the next one's coming out, because I can't wait. After this, I moved on to a graphic memoir, and that was Blankets by Craig Thompson. I managed to get hold of this at the library. I didn't break my book buying ban, however I was feeling a little bit itchy fingered for books, and so I thought, well, I'll get some out the library. These don't count towards my little book credits, so it will mean that I can buy less books when it does come the time, but it has meant that I've got to fulfill my urge to pick up a few books. I've wanted to read this for ages. I've heard quite a lot of people talking about it. It's quite a big book, and I think to buy it's like £35, so I got it from the library because I wasn't sure if it was going to be for me, and I thought, well, if I really enjoy it and it's excellent, then I can always buy it for myself at a later stage. It's about Craig Thompson's life, it's about him growing up, it's a coming of age story, and it's quite gritty. At times it's very hard to read, some of the things that happened. And definitely trigger warnings. If you have ever been affected by sexual abuse, then possibly think again about reading this story. I enjoyed this story, I enjoyed reading it, but having just not long ago read Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi, I didn't find this as good or as interesting to me personally as that, so I gave this one 3 stars. The next book I moved on to I got as an ARC, which came to me straight from Hodder and Stoughton, the publisher, but via www.lovereading.co.uk. I'll talk more about the book and the website very briefly in my next week's About a Book, because I will be doing a review of this. The story is The Mirror World of Melody Black by Gavin Extence. He's the author of The Universe vs. Alex Woods, which I actually haven't read, but I wanted to read this. I'd heard a few things about it. It's the story of a woman with a mental illness problem, and the story follows her. I really enjoyed this book for various reasons, and I go into it in a lot more detail in my review, so watch out for that if you want to know more about this. I gave this book ultimately 3 stars, and that was because it's just not necessarily the type of book that I generally would be drawn to read. That doesn't mean it's not great, and I talk a bit more about it and the type of people that I think would enjoy it in my review, so watch out for that. And then as part of the Underhyped Readathon, I included the end of The Mirror World of Melody Black because I was just finishing that as the readathon started, and then I started on The Undertaker's Daughter by Kate Mayfield. This is a memoir, and it's set in the sort of late 50s, 1960s, and it follows the life of Kate, because obviously it's a memoir, and her family moving in and running a mortician's funeral home. It's a really interesting story. It really reminded me in some parts of the film / book My Girl. I don't know if people have watched that, maybe it was just me because I'm quite old, but I really enjoyed that story when I was younger. It read very like fiction actually. She's written it in a very engaging way. It doesn't feel dry, it feels like she's telling a story, and I really enjoyed a lot of the information that she put in there. And it's not just about life growing up in a funeral home, it's also about life at that time. It's about desegregation, and there's a lot of racial tension. It's about small town life, and it's about influential people within certain towns. It's also about mental illness and various things that happen in Kate Mayfield's life with her family and her sisters and her brother. I enjoyed the story. I'm just not sure for me that memoirs are something that can capture my attention quite so much. I keep trying various non-fiction and memoirs, but at the moment there's only a few non-fiction books that I've really found have captured my attention and made me want to read more. So for that reason I gave this 3 stars, which is still a really good rating because I really did enjoy it. I'm just not sure that non-fiction memoirs are for me. Then the book that I'm currently reading is The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black, and this is also part of my Underhyped Readathon books. I'm really enjoying it so far. I am only a short way in, but I'm thoroughly enjoying this. And if you didn't see my last video, I picked this up for 50p in my local charity shop, so I'm not sure, maybe I've got a reviewer who lives nearby, and they've put it in there, so I was very lucky to find this and I'm enjoying it so far, so I'll let you know more about that next week. And now for the books that I'm thinking of reading next week. It will come as no surprise because this book has literally been on my TBR for every week for the last however many weeks, but Gathering Darkness by Morgan Rhodes. This is actually on my underhyped readathon pile, so I'm hoping to get to this next, but we shall see what happens. And then a couple of books from the library. I've got The Clockwork Scarab by Colleen Gleeson, which is a story involving Sherlock Holmes and Bram Stoker's children, maybe a bit of a mystery. They're solving murders or solving mysteries, and if I like that, then I've also got the second, which is the Spirit Glass Charade, and these are both from the library, so I just thought I'd give them a go, and they look like they're quite sort of fast reads. They're quite, you know, big writing. I think these are YA story. And then also I want to try and get to my final Kindle pick for the month, which I picked from my Kindle jar. I'm trying to read 2 a month, and although I've read a lot on my Kindle this month, I've only read one of the ones that I actually picked out, which was Talented, and the second one is The Abundance of Catherines by John Green, so I'm hoping to try and get to that this week. So quite a lot of books read, quite a lot of books to read next week, and yeah, I will be trying to do a quick underhyped readathon wrap up in a couple of days time, so I'll let you know how I got on a bit more with that. Look out for the Mirror World of Melody Black review, which will be next Wednesday, and yeah, let me know what you're reading, what you've been enjoying. Have you read any of these? What were your thoughts on them? And as usual, just let me know in the comments below and let's chat. Okay, bye for now, BookTube.